Welcome you all. Wow. April 2025. This is a spring, no doubt. The old line goes, you can't make this stuff up. This is a month that proves astrology, that proves the tropical zodiac. Without a doubt, this is a month that is stacked. So much happening at once. And this is the time of spring, even where we may have felt deflation, gravity, exhaustion, pain, redundant, getting knocked off our horse, getting back on, knocked off, back on, knocked off, back on. That's sort of been the theme of the day, with Mars being square to Chiron pretty much since the front of this year. Folks, this has been one of the most painful Mars retrogrades I can remember, and it is fortunately tying up its loose ends this month, particularly the end of this month. We're looking at something entirely new and different. And perhaps the number one question I've gotten from people these days is, when will there be a return of energy? When will there be a return of motivation? And we can anticipate this really starting off as Mars leaves Cancer, where he's been debilitated for months, enters Leo the 18th, goes opposite to Pluto on the 26th. Something is being born here, and a terrific amount of passion can inspire us into these new ways of being and relating that can even be the completion of significant chapters in regards to our relationships, our jobs, our means of earning money. And what this is all about is leading us into a more meaningful reality. Some of the most profound astrology going on as we see everything stacked up in Pisces. Mercury stations on April 10th, followed by Venus stationing on April 13th. They're on top of Saturn, on top of the moon's north node. This is a significant propulsion into the evolutionary needs of our time, which is to find this meaningful correlation between ourselves and the world in which we live. That's Pisces. Pisces is the greater phenomena of which we do not have any control over. And are we not being called to pay attention to that? Are we not getting a wake up that these things do trickle down and affect us now? They certainly do. Now, big news is, of course, money stuff. We have this huge economic wobble going on globally, while there is, of course, a Venus retrograde. But not only that, this is the conclusion of Uranus through Taurus, which this entire period, 6-7 years, has been this economic upheaval. And it is concluding the next several months, which is also when there tends to be a build up. Whenever there's a conclusion of a cycle, there is a culmination. So the whole theme of this economic upheaval is tying up its loose ends, but we can expect it to be going through a significant change in the next several months before Uranus enters Gemini, and we're going to begin like a slingshot, one of the most pioneering, progressive, new directions as a species, collectively I'm talking about here. And what could very well be the case is we're going to start to see what that new world is towards the end of this month. Again, we have a tremendous global shakedown going on. So we're talking about survival, Taurus. We're talking about, do we have our fundamental needs met? This is Venus stuff. There's two sides to Venus. The Taurus side, how we fill up our own glass, how we feel rich inside of ourselves, and this also covers our base survival needs: shelter, food, water, Taurus stuff, survival. Venus is also relationship. It's how that stuff that we're trying to bring into our life is being reflected back from the different experience. Every person is their own universe. And this is an incredibly Venus-centric month, with Venus stationing direct mid-month, ruling the full moon on April 12th in Libra. It's an incredibly powerful full moon, has a yod between Uranus, Venus, Saturn, the moon's north node, and is opposite to Chiron, which can certainly bring up this old theme. Venus has been front and central going on the last 3 years. She went from ruling the moon's north node in Taurus to the moon's south node in Libra, and now we're getting another refresher and reminder through this full moon in Libra. And this can bring conclusion. conclusion. We're looking at reality. We're seeing it for what it is. And there is something to know. There's something to learn. There's something to receive through the mirror of the other. That's fairly guaranteed with this full moon in Libra opposite to Chiron, because it brings up this healing through the mirror of the other theme. Now that is not a simple thing in and of itself. So to kind of go all the way back to elementary stuff, and by the way, quick promo here. I hope that this astrology is useful to you. I hope that this video gets to you. There has been a hack taking down my channel twice in the last month, so I'm a little paranoid. I hope this gets through. But the point of me doing this astrology is I hope it helps my fellow brothers and sisters. You can learn this astrology yourself. The core curriculum is already laid out in my online astrology school, and we're having a sale all of this month, 25% off, and that's a rolling subscription. If you subscribe this month, it's going to continue to be 25% off. That's $45 a month to learn all of this astrology at a go at your own pace. All right. So coming back to the astrology, we are seeing this incredible upheaval, both with money, economics. Uranus completing Taurus through July is all of these question marks, while the stock market and all of these different stocks and things go up and down and up and down. We're also looking at relationships. So to come back to the fundamental, why do we have relationship? We understand in evolutionary astrology, relationship serves a purpose. It's not merely the person that we have there to lean on. It's not merely the person that fills that void, and until we have a partner, we're a failure. This is a very skewed understanding of relationship, although probably the more popular form of it that we receive from our cultural conditioning, which we're going to be taking a look at with both Mercury and Venus stationing on the planet of conditioning, Saturn. This is also why we're taking things so seriously right now. I mean, Mercury stationing on Saturn, Venus stationing on Saturn. Again, we're forced to look at the bigger reality. We're forced to look at what's actually working and what isn't in the greater reality, in the greater picture of what matters in life. Jupiter's forming a square to the moon's nodes this next couple of months. This overall theme of conscience and what's actually meaningful and good and helpful is a major question. And while the moon's nodes transits the Virgo-Pisces polarity, we do have to keep this in balance, where Pisces is our be-all, end-all goals, our dreams, our ideals, our beliefs. And we have to measure those beliefs, Virgo, through analyzing, are those beliefs useful? Are they healthy? Are they providing our orientation to the world and the whole? Or are they in some way hindering our relationship to the other or the whole? And this is probably not super straightforward, as relationship hardly ever is. So why do we have relationship? It is to evolve. The mirror of the other is to shine a light at the majority of the iceberg that would otherwise be beneath the water. We have to have mirroring, healthy mirroring, helpful mirroring, in order to become self-aware, in order to know our own shadow, which is the real spiritual graduation. It's this total self-awareness into not discarding our shadow, but through becoming aware of it, we actually harness that shadow to be like a root core power. This is why relationships can be so helpful or so dangerous, because Venus in Pisces, we could use relationship to step into the most meaningful, heart-centered, soul-inspiring reason for being. We love them and we think of them first thing every day, and then they get us out of bed. And, this is love as a motivating force. And whether that be our significant other, or whether it be a deity or a god, that is a useful, inspiring thing. And just as much as we can use those ideals, those beliefs to be inspired, could we not also fan the flame of delusion, or use our relationships to go into a projected reality, a made-up reality, a fantasy, and to go into the rose-tinted glasses, lose our footing on the earth, become disconnected with what really matters? Well, I see that Venus, the heart and love, is where the most inspiring experiences and feelings and all that takes place, pure creative inspiration, and where we encounter some of the greatest threat to our soul, our creative potential, where we can become potentially stagnated, or in receiving the projections from others that are not necessarily coming from healthy mirroring. or useful mirroring, then we can form skewed distortions about who we are. We can then be loaded with all tons of shame and guilt, again coming from Saturn, societal conditioning. So let's talk about mirroring. This is again a Libra phenomenon. Libra rules the phenomena of the mirror as well as projection. We all need this mirror of the other so that way we know who we are, and we also need to be connecting in some way with others on a shared wavelength, right? We can't all be in our own reality as much as we simultaneously are. Like, every person is a mystery even to themselves, and we're constantly discovering more and more of who we are. And so when we're in a significant loving relationship, it becomes like a two-person mutual discovery. We're spiraling and understanding each other and coming into our potential and supporting one another more and more and more. But we need a shared reality in order to do so. And even in therapeutic approach, this is important. We're not necessarily trying to change the other person's reality. Certainly not. When I do readings, one of my questions on the survey is, do you believe in reincarnation? Because I'm not going to talk about it if you don't. You don't even have to believe in astrology for me to provide a useful reading for you. That's the point. The belief is not what conveys the usefulness, is not what conveys the truth. What we need is some shared reality through an honest, this is what's important, right? These are our shared goals. This is our shared mission. This is actually at the centerpiece of every healthy relationship. This is actually at the centerpiece of every spiritually evolving relationship. It's actually God at the centerpiece, and two souls spiraling around God together. Now, what's easier said than done, of course, is that in order to have healthy mirroring, we also have to have total honesty. And it's hard to be totally honest when we don't know the majority of the iceberg beneath the water in ourselves. And I think most people are actually trying to swim away from it rather than towards it. That's a huge problem, especially in the spiritual communities where we should be aiming towards the shadow, but the overall encouragement, Saturn conditioning, is to love and light yourself and try to skip and bypass that whole necessary phase of spiritual evolution. Then we stunt our own growth. We don't reach our power or potential. So we have to be able to be honest. We have to Mercury communicate. We have to have contact. Too often I see texts leading to misunderstanding and then projection. It's like, that's not what is even being said, but we miss what we're saying because of a what? Lack of contact. When we're texting, you don't see the facial expression, you don't read the tone of voice. Those are actually the more essential parts of language than the words themselves, despite us not focusing on that truth. That's how we communicate. So this is really important, that we have a shared reality through which we can have honest communication, and this is what we're evaluating. Because projection can occur when we are not really in a safe place, or we're not really respecting ourselves to a degree, and this is the real masterful work we're going through. All these years, again, reaching some culmination, finalization point at this time. Because Mars has been mostly in Cancer, finally completing Cancer towards the end of this month, this evolutionary theme of having to look at our life, look at our feelings, look at our experience, and understand, is this a safe space where we can actually open up and be vulnerable? Is this a place where we can really let our guard down? Is this a place where we can really show our shadow? Many people who have seen my videos have seen my shadow, but what I've learned is that I actually am not safe to show my shadow in most places because there's this judgment and superficiality, and because we don't know our shadow, for someone else to know theirs is wrong. So for people who are actually to a certain stage of evolution, it's not necessarily everybody that you feel total safety and you can be totally open and vulnerable with. It may be easier to provide for others than it may be to receive for yourselves. Ha! Imagine that. So what do we need? We need the inner support. We have to know what's working or not for us, right? Because if we're in a relationship that's abusive, for example, it's not going to be the abuser that lets us know it's an abusive relationship that we should leave, right? Who's going to be the one to inform us? It has to be us. It has to be informed by ourselves. We've got to do the painful work of cutting the cord, and that comes out of self-respect. That comes from our inner child, Cancer, informing us through emotional responses and reactions. This is fair, this is not fair, this is right, this is not right. And if it's always not right or not fair, we're not in safe company, right? So that's been an overall theme. This whole Mars retrograde, the first part of this year, is to create this safe space. We need self-respect, and we also need support from others. We can't do it totally on our own. We need the shared reality where we feel safe and others can come in and we can support each other in useful ways. We're not supporting each other in a shared delusional fantasy who can unplug from reality and run into some concoction the most. How can we create a most inspiring way of living, of relating, of creating? This is going to be a time that changes a lot of people's jobs and careers, this whole economic upheaval, this Venus retrograde, but the hidden blessing in getting this rug ripped out from under our feet is coming into much more meaningful work. As much as there is this distress signal going on collectively, the hidden blessing in that is the distress signal can lead us into more meaningful work. April 2025 is the month the distress signal charges this loaded spring into some type of breakthrough, into some type of slingshot, because we go into this month without total certainty. There is a change, there is a turnaround, there is a lightning bolt, there is a message delivery that completes some circuit, that completes some phase, so we can now step onto the next phase. We can now move on to the next leg of our journey. We're assembling some structure. We got the basement level down. Now we get to move up to the next steps. Or if we've been removing structures and everything's been getting washed away, Pisces could very well continue this year. Saturn balsamic to Neptune through the start of 2026, honestly. Still going to be a lot of Pisces. Well, that can be the hidden blessing of the blank slate. You know, we can start with that blank slate, even though it's a little scary at first because we don't know what to do. That becomes a total renewal, a total rejuvenation. And this is the month where such potential can occur. We even get some hints through the reflection of asteroid Pallas Athena in Aquarius, squaring asteroid Vesta, in Scorpio. It's going to really bring up this fanaticism, like, oh, we got to do this. And let's honor that each of us is going to have a unique part to play. This, again, is the balance of self-respect. We can't cut off our own hands. If we like to use our hands, we need all hands on deck. Everybody's needed in a different role. So the actual Mars and Leo function, where Mars is going on the 18th into Leo through the next couple months, several months, this is the purpose, is to find that role that uniquely celebrates who we are, who uniquely celebrates what we were born to be. I'll let you all know and take this to the even furthest extent of the Aquarius wackadoodle. You could even be born with 1 million mental disorders. I don't care. That is your gift to embrace and accept. It will eventually and inevitably unfold into a gift that can be loving, that can be useful, that can be creatively inspiring to others. But we don't know, or we don't choose rather, what those cards are that are dealt to us, right? We don't, at least I don't remember choosing my parents of origin that would inevitably cause the environment to create whatever it is that are the cards we're looking at through the rest of our life. This is human development. We're developing largely through the first 25, 30 years of our life. And so those are the cards that we are dealt. That's the first Saturn cycle. And what that oftentimes is conditions, certain expectations, obligations, and this is where there can be tremendous review and transformation taking place. Mental disorders, as an example, and I don't like the word, this is an area where the labels get really misleading. You know, there are certain pathologies that are celebrated in our world and certain that are demonized. The pathology of workaholism is one of the most celebrated. Workaholics are constantly looking for validation that me avoiding my feelings and working all the time is being a good person, the right thing to do. Codependency is widely celebrated. I've completely submitted and sacrificed my total identity, so I'm now the extension of another person. Isn't that me being a demonstration of love? Pats on the back, pats on the back. Even narcissism is celebrated in our culture as much as we simultaneously demonize it, which is a very Leonian experience in and of itself. I can relate to the getting put up on a pedestal and torn down by a pedestal, off the pedestal. That's what we do to Leonian people, those actors that we worship and simultaneously hate, right? So there's something in narcissism that drives us insane because we like to demonize that more than anything else. And of course, there's a healthy component of that. We all need to be healthily narcissistic. Our culture weirdly celebrates it like we ought to be that. We ought to be number one, sparkly, dominating, and at the same time, we're discouraged from the negative behaviors associated with narcissism. So the point is, we have to accept the cards that we're dealt, and the isms, the labels, the names, I think really threaten and scare people. So let's understand the purpose of those things is to map out our total identity, our total uniqueness. Again, the majority of the iceberg beneath the water, which we can choose to avoid or run away from through the rest of our life, or we can embrace, despite that being very challenging work. That's how we will come into our soul's true potential. That's when the roots plug into the earth and our soul truly turns online. Ladies and gentlemen, April 2025, our souls can be turning back online after an incredible period of getting knocked down. If we were wondering why everyone's been so apathetic and not springing to life, we're going to see that turn on its head this month. As it's not only the stellium in Pisces, it is Mars completing Cancer, trine those Pisces planets. And what we can also anticipate here is it's like emotional passion. This is feeling, being nearly possessed by feeling, being possessed by mood, by pure inspiration, and just having to honor our truth, having to honor our individuality, having to honor the cards that were dealt to us, because that is what God gave us. That is therefore what God has intended. It was not our choice. We don't get to choose everything in life. That is a Pisces reality. We have to submit to the cards we don't have control over. That doesn't mean we submit to an abusive partner. We do have control over those parts. So we're really going to be called to evaluate all these parts. We're going to be called into looking at the reality of projection with this particular full moon. And as I've mentioned throughout this whole Mars retrograde in Cancer, many of us can be reviewing this theme of gaslighting. Were we ever really safe to be seen or to let out our total identity, or were we consistently shamed into hiding and avoiding with the totality of who we are? And I think for more people than not, the latter is the case. I think most of us have experienced some level of gaslighting through our families, Cancer, and we almost learn to accept that, which is horrific. It's horrific because we lose our soul, we lose our identity, we lose a healthy orientation to ourself. That's what the ego is. The ego is not a bar to spirituality, is not an interference to our selfless love or commitment to other. No, an ego is a healthy thing that we have to have strong, protected, and enforced, so that way we can relate to others healthily without losing our soul. Okay, so through a need for self-respect, honoring those feelings and inner child, we can evaluate how much of this mirror is giving us the healthy information we need to look at, because there's probably parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at. That's really important that we do. And those are the parts that when we accept that, we finally get down and dirty with it, those are the most life-changing moments. Those are the truest moments of self-acceptance. And we're really in that self-acceptance when we understand nobody is perfect and nobody is finished. And it's oftentimes those people in those relationships that are willfully forcing it and enforcing it. We're perfect. That's usually where there's a red flag that something is off and something needs to change. So that projection can be informing us through the mirror of the other, of the stuff we don't want to look at, but we need to, because this is going to lead us into mastery. Now we can lay a foundation, Saturn, for better relating, for better money earning, for better Venus exchange on all dimensions, in all shapes and forms. That's what we're talking about with this astrology going on this month. That projection can sometimes be a boatload of garbage. People can put insults that says more about who they are than who you are. And in that case, should we hold on to that garbage for any millisecond, for any moment? No. When someone hands you garbage, you run as fast as you can to the nearest garbage can and get rid of it. Garbage is not yours to hold on to. Garbage does not help anyone. Garbage is not a critique. Garbage is not supportive. When we fling garbage and flaming crap at other people, that is the type of projection we know can't be truly accurate. No human is just garbage. We have to respect the human heart, the human condition, and the fullest of human experience. Because unfortunately, the most painful thing I've gone through years and years of experience is when you're going through your most painful times, you see who your friends really are. When you're going through your most painful times, you will see how many will kick you when you are down. And it is absolutely debilitating to get that wake up call to how few actually care and will actually go down and will actually show up and will actually go through the hard parts with us. That is what makes or breaks true union, true love, and what we're aiming for as a species is true support. We don't want any other nation starving. Are we going to do better with other nations starving? No. Are we going to do better with other humans starving? No. Let's end this fanatical demonization of others, which will come from an unhealthy projection. Someone goes through a wider range of experience than we are is naturally going to come off scary to us. Highly sheltered people with, silver spoon stuck in mouth type of lives need to stop pretending that they are the ones to assess and to problem solve and to judge and evaluate the rest of humanity, which is all too often the case. Major upheaval, April 2025. All right, folks, I'm wrapping up here. Please join the community. If this goes down, if this video goes down, if this channel goes down, myrosalilacommunity.com. This is how you can be guaranteed to stay in contact, to have this lifeline, to be in tune with this wavelength as I am still here and we're going to get through. Ladies and gentlemen, give yourselves pats on the backs for making it this far. And just, this month's going to go by so fast. We're not going to know what hit us. And at the end of this month, I think we're going to be looking at something profoundly different. So keep your head up, just a little bit more to go. And I think, once we're through to seeing some of the future, instead of everything that's dying and everything that's wrong and everything that is falling apart, that'll give us some extra motivation, direction, and clarity of where to step next from here. There will also be a Q&A. That's where I really flex what I do with evolutionary astrology. Last Q&A, I did some 30 readings in 5 hours, and these are life-changing readings. So that's only $24 a month. The school is $45 a month. My intention is to make astrology accessible, so that way you don't have to get it from another astrologer. You can get it direct from the source yourself. I think that truly would be one of the most supportive things for all humanity. To me, astrology is the singular most supportive thing that there is. And I do hope that that comes through to you in some way, shape, or form. I am wishing the very best to you and your beloveds. Please, please, please take care.